I was checking on my baby through the monitor when I heard a soft, whispering voice repeating my child's name. And I was the only one home. It was supposed to be a normal night. My partner was out running errands. The baby was asleep in the nursery, and I had just settled onto the couch with the monitor in my hands. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the air conditioner and the occasional creak of the floorboards. But then I heard a voice, soft and familiar, calling my child's name. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a trick of stress or sleep deprivation, until the voice came again, clearer this time, and it wasn't my partner, because I knew they hadn't returned yet. My heart stopped, my palms went sweaty, and every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone, that whatever was on the other end of the monitor wasn't human. That night changed everything I thought I knew about being home alone, about trust, and about the silence that can hide things you'd never want to face. It started as a completely normal night, or at least I thought it was normal. My partner had gone out for a few hours to run some errands, leaving me alone with our newborn baby in the nursery. And I had the baby monitor in my hands, the little green light blinking steadily, a comforting reminder that I could hear every sound in the next room. I settled onto the couch with a cup of tea, thinking about the day's chores, the laundry I still needed to finish, and the long list of things waiting for tomorrow, when I first heard it, a faint whisper, soft enough that I almost convinced myself it was coming from the monitor's static or some interference in the signal. But then it repeated, clearer this time, and my blood ran cold because it wasn't just a sound, it was a voice, calling my baby's name in a slow, deliberate tone, and my first thought was that my partner had come home early. But when I checked the front door, it was still locked, and the living room was empty, and I realized with a creeping sense of dread that nobody else was supposed to be in the house. I froze on the couch, gripping the monitor tightly, my eyes darting to the nursery door, every instinct screaming that I shouldn't go. Yet curiosity, fear, and a desperate need to know what was happening pushed me forward, and as I slowly approached the door, the voice came again, this time whispering not just the baby's name, but words I couldn't quite make out, almost like it was testing me, learning, familiar enough to make my heart ache, but wrong in a way I couldn't place. And I paused at the doorway, listening, hearing the faintest creak from inside the crib. Even though I knew my baby was asleep, my hand trembling as I reached for the door, and the moment I cracked it open, there was silence. Absolute silence, so heavy it pressed against my ears, and I dared to step inside, scanning every corner, every shadow, my heart hammering as if it might break, and the monitor in my hand, still lit, now emitted nothing but static, and I thought I was imagining it until I caught a movement in the corner of my eye, a flicker of shadow near the crib, and I spun around, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps, only to see nothing but the empty room bathed in the soft glow of the nightlight, and I stepped back, trying to steady myself, telling myself it had to be my imagination. Stress, lack of sleep, anything but the truth, which was that whatever had spoken through the monitor had been inside the house, inside my own home, learning my child's name, and I didn't know if it had left or was still hiding somewhere, waiting for me to relax, to lower my guard. And that night, I sat in the living room with the monitor clutched to my chest, listening to every creak, every whisper of wind against the window, waiting for a sound that never came, but knowing deep down it could return at any moment, because some things don't need to be seen to terrify you, they only need to speak. The next few nights were unbearable, each one stretching endlessly as I sat awake on the couch, monitor in hand, staring at the nursery door and praying the voice wouldn't return. But deep down, I knew it would, because the house had already been marked by something unseen. And on the third night, it happened again, just after midnight, when the hum of the air conditioner had lulled me into a false sense of calm, and I heard it, a whisper, soft, almost coaxing, repeating my baby's name in that same slow, deliberate tone, and my fingers froze on the monitor, sweat forming on my palms, my chest tightening as I realized it was trying to mimic the exact way my partner would call our child, the familiar inflection making it almost impossible to ignore. And I shouted my partner's name, desperate, but the house remained silent, empty except for the gentle breathing of my baby, who stirred slightly but made no sound. And the voice came again, closer this time, as if it had moved from the monitor into the room itself, whispering, learning, testing, and I backed away toward the living room, my eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, my body trembling with a fear that felt heavier than air itself. And then I heard a soft thump near the crib, subtle but deliberate, and I froze, unable to move, listening as the whisper repeated my child's name, slower now, more deliberate, almost patient. And I realized with horror that this thing, whatever it was, had learned something about me, about my family, about the way I reacted to sounds, and I felt trapped, a child again, powerless in my own home, unable to protect my baby from a presence I couldn't see. And when I tried to pick up the phone to call my partner, my hand shook so badly I dropped it, the loud clatter echoing through the house, and the whisper immediately stopped, replaced by the faintest scrape, like something moving across the floor. And I held my breath, waiting, heart hammering. And then I heard it again, directly behind me, my baby's name spoken in a voice so clear, so intimate, it made my blood run cold. And I turned slowly, every muscle in my body screaming to run, but there was nothing there. Only the monitor in my hand and the soft glow of the nightlight casting long shadows, but I could feel it just beyond the shadows. Listening, learning, waiting, and that night, I realized that this wasn't a one-time event, that whatever had found its way into our home through the monitor had no intention of leaving. And all I could do was sit there frozen, praying for sunrise, knowing that every time the house fell silent again, I wasn't alone, and that the thing on the other side of the monitor was always listening, always speaking, always one step closer than I could see. The next night, I tried to convince myself that I could handle it, that maybe it had been a glitch or some random interference. But as soon as darkness fell and the house settled into that heavy, watchful silence, I knew it wasn't going away, and it started softly at first. A whispering sound from the monitor repeating my baby's name. Slow, deliberate, familiar, and then it added something new, a laugh. Quiet and childish, almost playful, echoing across the room in a way that made my stomach churn. And my baby stirred in the crib, turning slightly toward the sound, eyes half open, as if responding to it, and panic surged through me, because this was no longer just a voice on a monitor. It was learning, interacting, reaching, and I moved closer to the crib, my heart hammering, every instinct screaming that I needed to protect my child. And the voice laughed again, softer now, almost taunting, repeating my baby's name alongside a string of words I couldn't fully make out, a rhythm that mimicked the coos and gurgles of a child, and I froze, realizing it had learned how to imitate the sounds of a baby in distress. And my mind raced with horror because I knew it could confuse, manipulate, and maybe even lure. And I grabbed the monitor and held it high, trying to find some control, some understanding of where it was coming from. But the static now hummed unnaturally, bending, stretching, and the whisper came again, right at my ear, though I hadn't moved, saying, "Come closer," in a voice that was equal parts my partner, my child, and something else entirely. Avoid pretending to be familiar, and I stumbled back, heart pounding, tears streaming. And for a moment, I thought the crib itself moved, the blanket shifting, as though someone unseen had touched it. And the monitor emitted a high-pitched squeal that made me cover my ears. And when I finally dared to look, everything seemed still, ordinary, yet the oppressive weight in the room told me it hadn't left, that it had been testing, learning, and waiting for the exact moment I felt safe enough to relax, because it wasn't fear that it wanted. It wanted control, influence, awareness. And I sat on the floor, trembling, the baby finally calm again, unaware, innocent, while I held the monitor tightly, knowing with every fiber of my being that the entity on the other side had stepped further into our lives than any human ever could. And that night, as I stayed awake, watching the nursery, I realized it wasn't just a voice. It was something that had learned how to sound like the people I loved most. And it was patient, it was cunning, and it was just beginning. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Every sound in the house amplified, every shadow twisting into shapes my mind couldn't ignore. And around midnight, the whisper began again, first softly from the monitor, repeating my baby's name, then louder, closer, as if it had crossed the thin line between technology and reality. And I felt it in an almost tangible presence brushing past me, cold and deliberate, testing the limits of my sanity. And when I finally mustered the courage to check on the baby, the crib was empty, though the blanket was twisted and the mobile spun slowly, as if someone or something had just been there. And the monitor emitted a static-laced whisper saying, "She's safe." With me, in a voice that was a disturbing blend of my own tone and my partner's, and I fell to my knees, shaking, terror rooting me to the floor, every instinct screaming that this was no longer a child's voice, no longer just a mimicry. It was intelligent, patient, and malevolent. And then the nursery door creaked, slowly, deliberately, and I froze, listening as the doorknob turned without anyone touching it. And a cold draft swept through the hallway, carrying that whisper again. "She's safe." Come closer, and I realized in horror that if I stepped 1 foot forward, I would be stepping into something beyond comprehension, beyond safety, something that had been watching, learning, waiting for the exact moment I felt most vulnerable. And I backed away, nearly tripping over the couch, my breath ragged, heart pounding. And then the whisper became a voice, clear, commanding, saying, "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you," in tones meant to lure, manipulate. And I understood in that moment that fear was not what it wanted. It wanted trust, attention, and proximity. And I ran, grabbed the baby monitor, and fled down the stairs, out into the living room where the lights were on, my partner's car still gone, my hand shaking so badly I dropped the monitor, which landed face up, still lit, still whispering. And when I picked it back up, the voice had changed, now mimicking my baby's coos perfectly, almost playful, almost innocent. And I knew that if I stayed another second in that house, it would not just observe, it would reach out, it would interact. It would take control in a way I could never undo. And in a blind panic, I grabbed the baby from the crib, bolted for the front door, locked it behind me, and sat on the porch, cradling the child in my arms, tears streaming, the monitor still in my hands, buzzing faintly with that same unnerving whisper repeating my baby's name. And as I watched the house, lights dimmed, shadows deepened, I realized that what had been in my home wasn't bound by doors, by walls, by anything physical. And the most terrifying thoughts settled in my mind. Some voices never stop calling, and some things never leave. No matter how far you run, no matter how safe you think you are, because they've learned your world, your loved ones, your weaknesses, and they wait always just one whisper away, ready to return the moment you think you're alone again. Sometimes, it's not the things you see in your house that haunt you. It's the things that call your name when you're supposed to be alone. And if you hear a familiar voice tonight, don't answer.